I mentioned earlier an update on Edge. So we haven't really talked about this, Mr. Marceau, because it was like a hot topic going into SmackDown last week. And the news, like, it perfectly, I don't want to say perfectly, but like it was one of those things where I know you weren't on the show last week, but it was one of those things where it happened as soon as I was done recording. And it happens all the time with you and I, where something big will drop after we're done here speaking on the phone and after I put up the show and whatnot. It was one of those type of things. As soon as I was done recording last week, news broke that Edge, heading into his match on SmackDown, could be looking to retire. That came from his trainer, Ron Hutchinson, who was in the front row for the match against Sheamus on SmackDown last week. And I read that, I'm thinking, well, clearly he's thinking it would be nice if he retired in Toronto on SmackDown 25 years later, blah, blah, blah. It'd be a nice full circle moment. Even Edge then went on record and said, this could be it for me. Again, I'm reading that thinking it's clearly an angle. He's just saying that to make people excited for the match. But what I saw them do with him on SmackDown last week, from the video packages to the interviews, to the music video, to the match itself, it being in Toronto, main event of SmackDown, winning clean, no post-match angle, crying wife, Beth Phoenix in the crowd with his kids there as well. It really did feel like the end of Edge. Maybe not in wrestling, but certainly in WWE. And then we hear rumors later on in the weekend, and then earlier this week, and as recently as yesterday, I'm just trying to give the full scope here before we really get into it, and then Edge later debunked these rumors in a video he put out on Twitter earlier today. But there was a report on Wednesday from PW Torch, and the report initially came late last week from Fightful, that AEW could be an option, and that he might be interested in that, and people would not be surprised if he went there. And then the PW Torch report had indicated that WWE made him an offer. No, I think it was actually Edge who made an offer for what it would take to retain her services, and they would not meet his demands, so to speak. And I read that, and I'm thinking, I don't think it's a money thing with Edge. I would just be very surprised that was the case. I mean, I'm sure he's making millions as it is right now in WWE for not working every week, so it's not a schedule thing. So that just kind of was weird to me. And then I had seen other people say, well, maybe it's a case of like he knew WWE wouldn't match that offer, so he gave them an offer that they couldn't match because he's always had his sights set on going to AEW and reuniting with Christian, which is probably the main appeal there, and going to AEW, which he almost ended up in 2020 before he came back to WWE. Before he got cleared, he was going to go to AEW, but he went to Vince McMahon first as a courtesy thing to let him know, and Vince said, well, if you're going to come back to the ring, it's going to be here. So AEW kind of helped. If it wasn't for AEW, he probably wouldn't even be back in the ring. But anyway, I mentioned a lot there, a lot to get into. What are you thinking about Edge, Mr. Marceau? You saw the match on SmackDown last week. You're reading all the same stuff that I am. What's your gauge on Edge and what his future holds in wrestling?
If I was him, I think I'd just hang it up. I think he had a good comeback with WWE. Had some good matches. Had the WrestleMania match with Roman and Daniel. Had some good. I feel like he had a lot of good matches, and I feel like it's. I don't know how old he is per se, but he finally could retire on his own, and I thought he had a good second run in WWE. I think if he really wants to continue, I guess he could go to AEW. He's not going to be Edge, so I guess he go by his real name, I guess. But I don't know. I just feel like he kind of finished with a good way, and I think if I was him, I would just hang it up. But anything's possible, I guess.
Yeah, it would just be surprising to me if that was his final match. First of all, it was a great match. The match with Sheamus was really, really good. I would just be surprised if he ended his career on a SmackDown, of all things. He had his final match on SmackDown. It was in Toronto, and they gave him the whole VIP treatment with it being 25 years of Edge. They dedicated the entire episode to Edge. No bloodline whatsoever. And it just being on SmackDown against Sheamus, of all people, I love Sheamus, don't get me wrong. I thought the match was great. But when I hear of a last match, I think of someone putting someone else over on the way out and it not being all about them. He didn't put over Sheamus. He didn't elevate really anyone on the way out. He really hasn't elevated a lot of people in the time that he's been back. He's actually won a majority of his matches, which is fine. Sting has won pretty much all of his matches in AEW. I think every single match that Sting has had in AEW, granted they're all tag team matches, but I don't think he's lost a single match in AEW. So it's not always about losing to other people. But I would think, he might want to put over like a Grayson Waller or someone like that on the way out, but I guess not. So that doesn't automatically mean that I think that he's done or not done. So it's not just that he could be done or he's going to AEW. He mentioned in the video that he put out on Twitter earlier today that he legitimately, and I take him at his word, that he doesn't know what he wants to do. Not as far as what company he signed with, but whether he wrestles at all. And you mentioned yourself. He had a great second run, I thought. And Edge is a divisive figure, not in terms of like the person himself, but his career and what he's been doing since he's been back. I've seen people say that he's had a bad run. He's had a run that people don't care about. They don't give a shit about Edge at this point, or they love the run like I did. I thought he had a lot of good matches we never thought we would see with Rollins, Roman, AJ Styles, Finn Balor, the list goes on and on. He got to team with his wife. He headlined WrestleMania. He competed for world championships. He had Hell in the Cell matches. He had a last man standing match. He competed in the Thunderdome. He competed in front of almost 80,000 people. He was there at Clash of the Castle last year. He had that whole year-long feud with the Judgment Day. He went heel. He was babyface. He had a number of returns. He's pretty much done it all. Competed in Canada a whole bunch of times. There really is nothing more left for him to do in WWE. Not even really left any matches left for him to have. He's faced all the current talent, even older talent that have been there as long as he has, like Randy Orton and Sheamus and people like that. There's just not a lot of people left for him to work with. No matches. I'm thinking, well, he has to come back for this. Do you think there's a possibility that, again, like I said, in that video that he put out earlier today, he said there is a contract extension waiting in his inbox? And again, I don't think he's lying about that. I think he's telling the truth. Why would he publicly lie about that? I think WWE is willing to keep him. I don't think they would just let him go to AEW. I think that they're not willing to let their lowest person on the roster go to AEW. I don't think they're just going to let Edge waltz in AEW. They're going to do anything they can to hold on to the WWE Hall of Famer. Do you think there's an option here where Edge does stick around in WWE and maybe he wrestles for another year, or maybe at WrestleMania and he wraps up there, and that what we saw on SmackDown may not have been the end after all?
I mean, I guess it's possible. I just feel like the way that they like wrote it and the way it kind of came off, I feel like it came off like it was his last WWE match. So, I guess it's possible, or maybe come like a different role or some sort, but I think in-ring wise, I would assume he's done. For WWE, at least. Yeah,
I don't know. I just think there's a chance he could compete again. I'm not saying he absolutely has to, but I'm just not ruling out that possibility. The AEW thing to me is weird, and it's not like I'm a WWE homer. I think he has to go to WWE or bust. Like, I agree with his initial thinking, and that documentary they put out on him 3.5 years ago when he first came back in early 2020, I think it was called The Second Mountain. It was a WWE 24 special, one of the best documentaries they've ever done. And he indicated there, and again, he's always pretty honest in his interviews, that he had revealed there if Vince, when he went to Vince, like I said earlier, about coming back, and Vince wanted him to have his return in WWE. That I agree with. Edge coming back to the ring after 9 years away, to me, had to happen in WWE. I know Saraya wrestled their first match back in 5-6 years in AEW. CM Punk came back to wrestling after almost 7 years away in AEW. Those are two different things to me, though, because, I mean, Saraya and Punk had a lot of their success outside of WWE, although they are synonymous with that company. Edge's entire career has taken place in WWE, and hearing that Metalingus song and hearing him called Edge and whatnot, it just wouldn't be the same in AEW if he were to come back 3 years ago. Now, if he were to go now, I mean, he made comments in an interview he did a couple days ago saying it's getting harder and harder for him to get back in the ring. I mean, he's not wrestling consistently, nor should he be, but his matches aren't bad. I mean, he had that great match with Sheamus, but he's clearly getting older. AEW wouldn't be opposed to signing him, obviously. They have a fucking 64-year-old and Sting on the roster, 63, 64-year-old and Sting. So, I mean, he could certainly sign there and it wouldn't be an issue, but at the same time, like, to do what, though? I know we say the Christian thing, and that would make sense. He wants one more tag team run with Christian. Okay, they get another match out of the Hardys? I mean, that sounds like an AARP advertisement waiting to happen. I like the Hardys, but I'm like, I mean, does that really need to happen? Probably not. I know he's very close with FTR. I mean, that's a match that could happen. I'm not sure. But beyond that, like, is he going in there working with Kenny Omega? Like, him and Punk, we've seen that before. Him and Daniel Bryan, we've seen that before. Like, I'm not really sure what there is left for him to do in AEW unless it was just a quick one-off tag team run with Christian, which might be enough to appeal him to go there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I just feel like their tag team division's like the weakest it's been in a while, so bringing them in, like...
And now of all times, yeah.
I don't know, I feel like it just wouldn't be the same. I mean, I bet you... I don't know, I feel like what they've done with Christian, I feel like Christian's probably been one of the better people they've had, but, like, he's also not wrestling a lot. He's pretty good in, like, the manager role as it is to begin with, so... I feel like he fits better there. Like Edge isn't. I feel like Christian's a better talker. I feel like Edge would just be, like you said, it would have to be like a wrestling run, and like I don't know. I'm not really looking forward to Edge and Christian 20 years later and running it back. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know they kind of already have that nostalgia act in the Hardys, though. I mean, we've seen the Hardys on the show the last couple of weeks, losing to Aussie Open and the Young Bucks, and they almost put the tag team titles on them a year ago before Hardy got arrested, that being Jeff. You know, I don't know, man. I love Edge and Christian. I love the Hardys. Seeing them run it back would be cool. I think that it sounds good on paper. It sounds like it's a cool little short-term thing. I don't know if you could sign a 6-month contract there. I feel like if Tony Khan wants him, you would only have him sign like a 3-year deal. Like, what, he's going to wrestle till he's 53? I mean, I guess he could. Jericho's around the same age. But Jericho's working weekly. I mean, Jericho is... Not that Jericho is having these amazing matches on a weekly basis either.
He's working weekly. I wouldn't say it's great matches or great television.
It's not, but I also just feel like, and I love Edge, but I just feel like in the time that he's been back in WWE, dating back to when he first came back in 2020, I don't know if it's a stylistic choice or they're just having him do this. Maybe it's a WWE, you know, they're forcing him to do this. I don't know. His matches are very slow, and that can sometimes be a great thing if they're telling a great story. Or they could, I mean, a lot of his matches feel like they're fucking 30 minutes. It's very rare Edge has a match that's at least less than 20 minutes. I know you want to get the most out of him by having him be in the ring for a while. The match with Waller on SmackDown was maybe 15 minutes, and that was probably one of the shorter matches he's had. The Balor match at Mania this year, I mean, I'll look it up right now, but that was certainly not a 10-minute affair. I know it was Hell in the Cell, but I'm just thinking, like, this is just way too fucking long. Like, it's just dragging on forever. I'm looking it up now, but, you know, the Roman Reigns match at Money in the Bank a few years ago was like 30 minutes. Like, is he really going to have those type of matches in AEW? Oh, wow, holy shit, never mind. Edge and Balor only went 18 minutes. It felt like it was 30. Maybe it's just not because I didn't like the match. I don't know. I just did not love that match. So what I'm saying is he has a different style of wrestling. Like, he's not going in there and hard-hitting like Daniel Bryan. And even Punk, he's not the same performer he was a decade ago. But he could still go in there and hang with the active, like bump, 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 bump. I don't know. I just don't see that same sort of style of match from Edge. I don't see his style working for the sort of stuff that AEW does. Maybe it would be a breath of fresh air, but, I mean, that's just single stuff. Tag team stuff might be different, but I don't know. I just don't see him being a great fit for AEW, especially when they already have Sting and there's rumors of Goldberg maybe coming in. I mean, when are we going to turn the tables here and accuse AEW of bringing in only part-timers? I mean, what worth do they really have for Edge? We hear about this, whether it's true or not, and Tony Khan's a mark, as we all are, but he would pay top dollar for Edge. What's the worth there? Let me ask you this. What's the worth there for them bringing in Edge? I just don't feel like it would really make that much of a difference. Punk, you can build a brand around. Danielson, you can have him put over other people. They've been invaluable to AEW's success. I just don't really feel like Edge is a necessary signing for AEW either.
Yeah, I feel like you'd slate Edge in with like the Saraya role, like a big name, but really, I mean, I just don't know how much you'd really get out of him. And like I said, they're changing his name, so it's not Edge. It's, I don't know, Adam Copeland. I don't know what the fuck he'd go by, but like I just don't see the long term. I think, like, yeah, at first you'd get like the people going crazy for Edge. I don't think it's gonna be like it's not like a Punk. Like Punk is like basically like the guy. I don't think Edge would be there, and I don't know. And it's not like if he's working more regular. Like, even the guys they brought in, like even with like Bryan and Punk, like they brought them. They're probably the biggest two names in WWE, and they've both been, I don't want to say constantly, but been consistently injured as well. So, like, Punk obviously had the suspension, but, like, he's got hurt multiple times. I mean, Bryan's out on injury now. I think he's been injured before as well. So, I mean, if Edge is going to work more consistently, I would assume he's going to get injured as well. I just don't really see, like, the worth. If they're bringing him just for a tag reunion with Christian, I mean, I don't really see it being a big thing.
I don't, and maybe, like I said, maybe as a one-off, but for a full-on run, for a 3-year run, to do what? I mean, the tag team with Christian and then split off on his own. I just don't feel like, and again, I'm skeptical. I just don't feel like he would feel as much of an attraction in AEW as he does in WWE. And say what you will, maybe it's because AEW just has a bigger and more stacked roster than WWE. That's obviously debatable. They already have Sting, and Sting's been booked amazingly well. But Sting's been already doing the tag team thing. I feel like it's the same sort of thing. If you're just going to bring in Sting and put him in a tag team, which has worked great for him and Darby and whatnot, to do the same thing with Edge just feels like the same thing at that point. Just put that money towards signing new talent and building up the people you already have. They already have enough people we don't see enough of. We heard those rumors, or at least I saw the rumors on Twitter yesterday. Oh, Keith Lee might be gone from AEW. Apparently that isn't true. But, I mean, let's start focusing on those people instead of worrying about bringing in Edge or Goldberg to do what? Unless Goldberg's coming in to put over Wardlow. We haven't seen in fucking months, by the way.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're bringing in these people for a short run to put over other people ultimately. I mean, again, I love Sting. He feels like an attraction. He feels special. He has not put over a single fucking person except for Darby Allin by teaming with him. That is it. I mean, we can't just have these nostalgia runs where they come in and they run rampant over the tag team division. And then if you have them in there losing consistently like the Hardys have been lately, then they don't feel special at all. So it's kind of a lose-lose. I'm not even saying he has to go to WWE, but to kind of circle back, long-winded answer here, I just feel like him probably retiring and having that be it from SmackDown, or just doing a couple more matches and wrapping it up at WrestleMania might be the best way to go. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I don't think WWE even needs him either. I think he's had a great run, and he's put over all these people, and he's beaten a lot of people, and he's had a lot of great matches. There's not one match I say to myself, oh, Edge has to stick around for this match with Cody Rhodes. I mean, that'd be cool, but, like, it's not necessary.